Hello, Nathan.
Hello, Jonathan. How are
Hello,
you?
and very good. Yourself?
I'm fine, thank you. Yes, very good.
Good
It's a
stuff.
glorious Saturday evening in God's own county of West Yorkshire. So, what's not to love?
There's a lot of people who will dispute that, but we'll carry on.
They're wrong. They're wrong. Wrong, I tells you.
uh, Hello, everyone, and welcome to the live stream to celebrate the end of reaching season 1 on the Curious Ulsterman podcast. I'm your
Who'd have thought
host.
we'd get this far?
I know. Tell me about it. I'm your host, John Bell, and my co-host, Nathan Senior. And yeah, we're going to have just a casual podcast this evening, and followed by a Q&A from yourselves. And then if you stay tuned at the
Fancy.
very end, I've got a competition lined up where 3 people will be getting a prize, provided they complete the competition, so to speak.
Oh, I'll definitely
So,
stay in tune for that then.
100%, not to be missed. So, how it's going to roll is on the fly. We've decided that Nathan's actually going to interview me, so to speak, despite being the co-host, and we're just going to chat about the highlights of season 1, best bits, trials, and biggest lessons and takeaways. So, without further ado, Nathan, I'll hand it over to you.
Cool. Thank you very much. First of all, I just thank you again for inviting me to be your co-host on this pod, and thank you for trusting me to join you for those few episodes that I've been in on, which has been great. I as Johnny's already said, when we were chatting about this earlier on and having ideas about what to do for this live episode, I thought that what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Jonathan some questions about this, because this is his machine, and I also want to learn some more stuff about it as well. So for those who maybe have missed every episode, but for some reason have joined in tonight, or are watching this I always get this the wrong way around, in posterity, and are watching this in the future, so when it's not live, what's the purpose of the Curious Ulsterman podcast?
So the purpose of the podcast is to essentially equip, ideally, people leaving school or university with the skills that they need to thrive as adults but aren't taught in state education. And as good as state education is, and I'm very thankful we get it. There's a lot of places around the world where people just simply don't receive education, and while that's that's terrible, but within our own state education, as much as I appreciate the teachers and all the hard work that goes into that, it doesn't prepare us a lot, quite frankly, for the real world. We can rhyme off trigonometry and algebra, but we don't know how to manage our mental health. We don't know how to change a car tire. We don't know how to cook, unless you're lucky enough to have someone to teach you. It's strange in that, for the majority of your life until the day you turn 18, for the most part, you're told what to wear, where to go, be here by a certain time. And then the difference of 24 hours, you're suddenly go, right, well, it's all on you now. So that dichotomy is a bit of a culture shock, I think, for a lot of people. And while the initial wave of, I'm independent, it's all my responsibility now, sets in, that honeymoon period wears off, and suddenly you realize just how unequipped you are for the most part in dealing with the adult world. And while we need to go through some experiences ourselves to properly have adulthood, so to speak, to properly make our own decisions, practice our critical thinking, and just have that human experience, if I can mitigate a lot of the nonsense away, and I can get rid of a lot of the needless drama and mistakes, then that I can help serve you that way. Put it this way, the whole point of it in a nutshell is it's the stuff I wish I knew when I turned 18. Awesome. If someone sat me down and said, right, here's the biggest things you're going to deal with, and rather than you going through the costly mistakes sometimes, here's people who are more educated, more life experience to help guide and mentor you away from making bad life choices.
Yeah, of
So
course.
so in a nutshell, if I can teach you, or me and my guests who I bring on can teach you how to get a job, how to cook, how to properly assess and deal with your mental health, your physical
Yeah, yeah.
health, and all the things in between.
Mm,
We've done our job.
awesome. Yeah, no, that's good. I like that to be um, a voice of calm in the storm. I like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That's
Can I
good.
just interject and say, for everybody who is watching, do feel free to, talk in the chat and ask questions and things like that. So,
Yes, please. This pod is only as good as the people listening.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay. Um, so I'm trying to think back now to it would have been last summer, I think, maybe August time, I think, and you phoned me up, and we had a long chat about your this dream of creating a podcast
Hmm.
and this and what your vision and hope was, and we talked a lot about it. And when you very kindly asked me to co-host with you, and then obviously since then there's been a lot of months and a lot of foot traffic as from you, a lot of hard graft um, in going from that initial dream to being here now with your own podcast and YouTube channel and Twitch streaming and all that stuff, all that good stuff you've been doing. So from that initial conception to now, what's been your toughest experience with the Curious Ulsterman?
That's a really good question. And off the top of my head, I would have to say it would be my very first interview, the very first one, and in
Okay.
person as well. So, um, I was interviewing a naval chaplain on the concept of death. Believe it or not, it's quite a morbid subject to start on, but it was the whole point of it was that we never have these discussions until, unfortunately, a loved one passes away, and then there was that question of what's the correct way to grieve? Is there a correct way to grieve? Are all these emotions I'm feeling normal? What's correct etiquette? So,
Yeah, yeah.
a very important message. Went and had a chat with him, and if it could go wrong, it did go wrong. Um, so set it up, having not a Scooby what I'm doing, pretty much set up the microphones in all the wrong way. So both our microphones were picking each other up. So there was an echo. The camera I had to create a video kept timing out every 15 minutes for some unknown reason. We had a random guy just barge in and be like, "Oh, sorry, lads, I've got to I've got to do a fire alarm test." And yeah, if it could have went wrong, it did go wrong. And that sort of brought home
Yeah,
to me that podcasting is not a turn up, have a chat, and be on your merry way. It's hard. There's a lot of work and technical difficulties that go along with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
To give you an idea, my first 11 episodes, something
Yep.
went wrong in some capacity.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
just about rolling with the punches and not getting disheartened. There
Of
is
course, yeah.
you do get disheartened a little bit, but it's just having that confidence and knowing that
Mm,
people are enjoying what you're saying, and it's all part of the learning process. I mean,
mm.
like, I'm going to pull the statistic, which at the time was correct, but I believe that 50% of podcasters don't get past episode 7
Okay.
because they suddenly realize that it's not a get rich quick scheme,
Mm.
that they're not going to be Joe Rogan in a couple of months, that you just going on to the end of a microphone and babbling about nonsense is not going to get you viewers or provide value to people.
Yeah, sure.
So that was my most difficult moment from conception to where we are now. It was 100% my very first episode, but I
Mm,
learned so much in that first episode. It was necessary.
mm,
It was a vertical learning curve, and then rather than saying "woe is me," I just went, "Okay, what can I learn from this experience? Here's what
mm,
I've learned." And like my most recent episode with my good friend John Bow on a veteran's journey on what war's
mm.
really like,
Yeah.
PTSD, and setting up a successful business. That was my best ever episode, I think. Just from at the
Excellent.
time, it didn't feel like it. It felt like that was a great episode, and then I listened back to it, And that was like the contrast between just episode 20 and episode 1 was a country mile. So yeah.
I'd like to think so. 20 episodes later.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I think actually sometimes that experience I think is applicable everywhere, isn't it? That it doesn't matter whether you're doing podcasting or whether you've decided to join the postal service and become a post person, or you're going to university or whatever it is you're doing, and everything in between. If you're to say first 20 episodes, let's say the first 20 days, it's going to be tough, isn't it? And there's going to be things that you get wrong. There's going to be stuff that you just never saw coming, just suddenly just appearing, and sometimes you haven't even seen them even after they've hit you. So I think that's good just for life in general, just to be aware, and also that because I think if what you're wanting to do is impart to people life lessons, I think the best lesson that you've given them so far is the fact that you've carried on going.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot to be said for that. So I think that's really good. Cool. Right. So off the back of that, then, what have your highlights been of this first season of podding?
Highlights. Wow. I would say the variety of people I've got to chat to. I've chatted with everyone from bushcraft instructors to public accountants who've been through 2 or 3 big jobs, therapists, and my own PT instructor who's very good and very knowledgeable, who we're actually recording an episode tomorrow on myth busting, the most common myths in the gym. So yeah, you can look forward to that one next week. It's hard to put it down probably to a single. In fact, actually, I can put it down to a single highlight. Actually,
it's all right. I said highlights. You're allowed highlights. More than one.
Yeah. Well, I'd say okay. If I was going to put it in first place, I would say that I think I was about 12 episodes in, and I wasn't really seeing a lot of reviews, if you know what I mean, as in like this is actually having an impact on people. And then I by accident discovered a resource called Podkite, which opened up my reviews internationally, because if I get reviews within the UK, it'll show, but if I get it from elsewhere around the world, it won't. So logged into it, and I went from pretty much 0 reviews to about 6, which for a beginner podcaster is pretty good. And they were all 5-star, and there were all these people saying, I've been listening to this on a lockdown binge, and this has really helped me do this, that, and the other. And it was nice to see that the sum of my efforts had made a difference in people's lives. It was also nice. I'll never be able to see it, but there's people who will never contact me, but I've got immense value out of the podcast. And that's nice to know when you go to bed at night that somewhere someone has taken a lot of value out of that particular episode or episodes. Other highlights, to be honest, just having you as a co-host. I just like having a chat with you on a weekly basis, or bi-weekly basis, or fortnightly would be more better way of saying that, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's
classic phrase.
Yeah, it's classic. It's just nice to have a chat with friends, especially in lockdown. It's like, for like we went through a phase of we talked with each other every day while you were down in Portsmouth and I was down in Portsmouth, and it went like a 2-year phase of we didn't see each other and didn't probably chat, and the occasional exchange of memes, but that was about it. memes. And now we get to just chat on a weekly, fortnightly basis about stuff, and sometimes it's nonsense, sometimes it's gold, but it's just nice to have a chat with friends. Other highlights has been the smashing probably of my ignorances and biases. When you're exposed to so many people with so many perspectives, and thankfully I approach it with an open mind. You've got to, in the weight of the evidence, change your opinion and your view, and that's especially on like perhaps the mental health episode I did with Colt Gordon at the start. That was a really big one because I had a lot of misconceptions about mental health, not negative, but just I didn't know a lot about the subject because
Of
funny
course,
enough,
yeah.
I was never taught it in school. So there is that, and I mean, it's the same with like even yourself. You've challenged me on a few occasions in a positive way, to obviously like, well, okay, maybe my way of thinking or that perspective isn't perhaps the correct way of seeing the subject. So yeah, there's
I think is
as
it
I was
sometimes so that that subjects are nuanced as well. So it's kind of because I think like
100%.
there's some stuff that you've said that I've gone, oh, I don't agree with that. But then as we've gone and conversed a little bit more, I've gone, well, hold on a minute. No, it's about where Johnny's currently stood, and so that actually makes sense.
Yeah,
And also the fact that my idea and my opinion isn't always right.
yeah,
And so actually, like that growth, and as we've chatted and those things, it's been a two-way exchange. It's not, my views and ideas have been challenged as well. And also when I've been listening to, your pods with other guests, and just hearing some stuff, and I'm like, wow, that's just a bit of gold has just dropped out, in front of me. So sorry, go on ahead.
no, not a problem. Uh, yeah, I would also say another highlight is just the audience, and like
Yeah,
for those of you who ever do start a podcast, one thing you do get mildly addicted to is seeing where your podcast is being listened to. So like you
all
check the
right.
stats and stuff, and week to week it's grown, and I'm getting steady listeners. But it's amazing to see that on the regular there are people in America, Korea, um, France, and for some reason last week the Netherlands went pretty mad with it. Big episode binge in the Netherlands for some reason.
Awesome.
And yeah, it was nice. But yeah, I would say a highlight is my audience, and
Mm,
the feedback I get from them saying, "Yeah, thanks very much for that." It's nice to know that
that's
you're
really
making
good.
it. If we're going to be totally like factual and straight, the world is a bit of a weird place at the minute,
Oh, I
and
yeah.
the fact that in this apparent sea of negativity, there's a little bit of goodness being created on this random little podcast where someone
Yeah, yeah.
listens in for once a week for an hour or less, and they've taken away something that they can take an actionable step in their life to make their life
Yeah,
better. That's
that's
an
really good.
amazing feeling, man. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
highlights.
that's really good. Yeah, no, I like that. I think, yeah, I think it's nice to like find something, particularly over these last 12 months, that hasn't been binge watching Netflix, and so I mean, your podcast, amongst others, that I've started listening to whilst I've been going out walking and stuff, is just something just to look forward to and to listen to, rather than just sort of sat on my butt watching TV. As
Yeah.
That's definitely been a highlight for me. So it's good. That's good. Um, I tell you what hasn't been a highlight for me though about your podcast.
And
Yeah,
what is?
that's right.
I'm interested now.
I didn't realize that when we've been doing these things on Zoom and you were pressing record, that I thought it was just the audio, and I didn't
Oh.
realize you were recording my face. And then I went on YouTube and watched some of these things back, and because I didn't know I was going out live, I'm picking my nose, I'm looking at the clock. There's a couple of times where clearly I'm replying to text messages. I'm like, dude, and it's my own fault. I should have checked. But I just didn't realize.
I think I did say to you at the very start, "Oh, do you mind if this goes on YouTube?" I was a curse like, yeah, no worries. And I probably should
Um,
have made that explicitly clear
in,
as the video as well.
in my head, because I listened to podcasts, I assumed even though it was on YouTube, it would just be like the Curious Ulsterman and then our voices. I didn't realize that my face was going to be. And then I played some of the back, and I was like, I'm picking my nose there. That's great. I'm looking at the clock. Brilliant. So. But anyway, that's just my
Lesson learned, eh?
yeah, absolutely. Speaking of which, that's that. I tell you what, how did we manage to do that? Because my next question is, what's the biggest lesson that you've learned from doing, or lessons that you've learned from launching this podcast?
Um, I would say off the bat, there's two very big ones. I would say the first one would be to not be afraid of being creative.
Awesome.
And the reason for that, and I think especially amongst blokes, because we do have this, and the only way I can describe it in the moment is ego. The ego can be positive and negative. It's not this one-dimensional thing. But it's the same thing when you were in school. You don't want to stick your hand up in class, even if you don't understand the subject, because you don't want to look stupid.
Or even if you know the answer, you don't want to stick your hand up in class.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes you stick your hand up too much, you're the teacher's pet, or you're just smarty pants, whatever. But I think once you get over the fear of people judging you, and you do it just because you enjoy it. Like, I would still produce this podcast if nobody listened, because I enjoy it. And in a weird way, even if nobody listened, I'm getting loads of really wonderful people to come on here, and I'm learning, and I'm getting educated, and I'm becoming a better adult, and I'm becoming a better citizen and a better man in the process. So for me, I would say that this kind of goes back to our previous episode on creativity with No Wet Fish. And yeah, great name. So I think that as kids, we're not afraid of being creative. You just dance for the sake of it. You sing, even if you can't sing. You draw outside the box, and somewhere along the way we lose that for fear of we lose that for fear of judgment from other people, which in a weird way, the people who are judging us probably shouldn't be in our social circle anyway. Yeah. I mean, the people within our social circle, if anything, if I said I want to take up this creative activity, if the words out of their mouth aren't "way to go, man," yeah, go do it. I don't want. Okay, if it's like dancing or starting a podcast or whatever, if they go, yeah, 100% will support you, you're in with the right crowd. If they look at you funny and sneer and judge, you should probably find a new group of friends, or maybe avoid that toxic family member. I would say that the biggest lesson I've learned is just do it because you'll enjoy it. Because if you're holding back for fear of judgment, people are going to judge you anyway. People are going to judge you if you don't do it. And if you do stick your head above the parapet, there's always going to be someone to judge you, saying your stuff is garbage, it's terrible. But I haven't had anyone tell me this stuff is terrible. But I have had quite a few people say, that stuff really helped me. Thanks very much.
That's quality.
Probably the second thing, and this is just personal to me, that I learned was actually, and I think the second or third episode with Colt Gordon on mental health.
Yeah.
And it was
great episode, by the way.
It was a fantastic episode. Do check it out, folks. And the one quote that has stuck with me and lives rent-free in my head, is that familiar hells are preferable to strange heavens. And the first time I heard that, it blew my mind. But I was in the middle of the chat, and then after it ended, the more I thought about it, I thought, how applicable is that to me and everyone? Like, how much are we deliberately stunting our growth and potential because we're stuck in a hell that, yes, it's not pleasant, but at least we know it, rather than that potentially taking that leap of faith and fear and entering a strange heaven. But that, it's that for me, really, like, what strange heavens am I missing out on because I'm comfortably familiar with hell? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the biggest one-liner, I think, out of the whole season 1 for me personally. But that's the beauty of this podcast, I think, because while that's my one-liner that I took away from this, somewhere in another episode, someone will have heard something and it potentially changed their entire perspective or given them that little lift that they needed. So that's the beauty of it. The podcasting can really, really help people, and it's it's not a one size fits all thing. You know,
Mm.
some people's mental
Yeah.
health is in a really good state, and that's fantastic. So that episode's not really applicable. But perhaps in this current environment, they're going to go get a job interview, and it's like, oh right, well that job interview episode was gold because I needed all that
Mm.
information. So yeah, that's the biggest lessons I learned.
Mm. Yeah. I think though that things like that, I think it's worth listening to. Like if you're thinking, oh, my mental health is rock solid, that's fine. Still listen to that episode, because it might not always be, but also let's stay optimistic. It might be, but one of your mates or family members might not be, and listening to that might give you. Not saying that now you're a qualified counsellor, you can go and fix that person's mental health, but it might give you just enough to recognise something and to ask the right questions to try and help that person and point them in the right direction. That lighthouse thing you were talking about, it will
Yeah,
equip you. It will equip you to lighthouse someone. And so I think all of those, these lessons that are coming out in each episode, I would say, just because it maybe doesn't directly apply to your life right now, listen to it anyway, because actually, that way, what we're doing is we're creating a network of Curious Ulsterman lighthouses,
I like that.
where we can, where we can be directing each other and helping, each other. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's tuned in. It can be just a colleague, a fellow student, whatever. Someone who just needs that, a bit of light shining on something in their life, and you go, hold on a minute, I've been given that information. I can do that. I can help that person. I think that's useful. To a useful tool to have to hand.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Um, all right. Right. So, what would you say then is what's the future of the Curious Ulsterman look like?
The future,
Mm.
feeling pretty ambitious actually. So,
World
constantly
domination in 5 years.
100%. It's the only way to go. Joe Rogan, I'm coming for you. So, gonna reach out to guests, and the guests are gonna get hopefully, bigger. And that's not to say that just because guests don't have a mass social media following that they don't provide value. But I do intend to make this, a brand, so to speak, a proper platform, and to reach as many people as possible. So, the list of guests I'm gonna bring on will hopefully get bigger and bigger in the way in the respect that the value that they can bring. So, for example, hopefully going to get a sleep scientist on, and while there's a few people who fit in that category, it's there's some who are more active on social media than others, and perhaps maybe a bit of a bigger name. So, in that regard, if I can get the biggest fish in that pond, great. But just work my way down from that. And same for, like, there's an astronaut I'm gonna ask, see if he'll come on, because you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And
It's not Major Tom, is it?
no, but I didn't actually consider asking him, but I might. There you go. Yeah. So essentially, trying to get as many characters and professions on
Tim
as
Peake
possible.
is what I meant.
Yeah. There's Tim Peake. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not getting him, no.
Well, who knows? You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, if I can get everyone from a plumber to come on and tell people that are
Yeah.
seriously interested in getting on to be a plumber, what's a
Mm.
plumber actually like? And then if
Mm.
I can get an astronaut on and say, if people do want to become an astronaut, what do they need to do? Or what's the biggest life lesson you can impart on someone as an astronaut?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
Mm.
yeah, I think the future the reason why I'm aiming for this future is because I think a lot of us have a lot of self-limiting beliefs and self-sabotage. It's kind of like, well, what if they say yes? Holy crap! Someone like some big insert big name has agreed to come on my podcast or show. And that's like, well, crap. What if this flops? What if it? And sometimes I think we aren't ambitious enough. So for me, that's what I'm gonna do for future wise. In the, I want to say in the next year and a half, launching another podcast, but it's going to be more travel based. So do stay tuned for that one.
Are you waiting for that because you're waiting for lockdowns to finish?
Pretty much, yeah. not a lot of traveling to do.
Come on, Bojo.
Yeah, get us out of this. But yeah, that's the plan, to only grow and grow and grow, and then get another podcast on the go. And this time, interview people on the road and just have fun. Because that's the point. What's the point of doing a podcast or any creative activity if you're not going to have fun along the way?
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay. Okay, so off the back of that then, this, we may be covering ground, or that we may be going back over ground we've already covered. But I'm just going to ask you this anyway. Whether it was podcasting or just life in general, what's a little nugget now, a little piece of, Curious Ulsterman golden nugget that you can pass on to your listeners right now?
No pressure.
No, I know. That's why I didn't warn you about this one before we started.
Oh, cheers, brother.
My pleasure. That's what I'm here for.
There you go. A little nugget. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Ooh. Okay.
And yeah, that was the name of the mental health episode of Colt Gordon. And that throughout this podcasting journey and throughout my even day to day has been, this is scary, or this is deeply uncomfortable. Okay, well, feel it, acknowledge it, and crack on anyway.
Yeah, man.
So not advocating going full yes man like that Jim Carrey movie, but yeah, maybe that's a call to action you could even do. Like, yeah, tag the Curious Ulsterman. Let us know what you're scared of, and then let us know that you just charged on through it anyway. So whether that's whether that's creative, or maybe that's applying for that dream job that you don't think you're totally qualified for, or pick your I don't know, pick your big scary dragon and go slay it.
Yeah. Also, I think like tag the Curious Ulsterman in those things, and who knows, maybe we'll contact you and interview you.
I like that. That sounds like a great idea.
Or we'll find another SME and do a podcast just for you, for your fear.
I like it.
To throw you a sword so you can slay your beast. Because actually, like, this, one of the things I've got from this is the fact that, I feel like we've all started this 1,000-step journey together, but each one of us has got a different destination in mind. But that doesn't matter, because it's what you're trying to do is encourage people to do that, one foot in front of the other, and to achieve and to overcome. So I think that's good.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. Really good.
Yeah. So if you, in fact, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. What's your biggest takeaway from season 1?
Oh, that's good. Do you know what I took away from that is the fact that actually, I think it's something that I'm really guilty of, and that, whenever I have these ideas and creative things, I tend to get very quickly overcome by the idea of the fact that I'm going to mess it up. And I think, and I've said it before in previous podcasts we've done together, that just that one line from is it Joe? Is it
John Bow?
John Bow.
Yeah.
Don't let perfect get in the way of doing something.
Yeah.
And And so I think all the other stuff was great. But just that one thing, because I do very quickly get very, very like self-conscious and like, but you know, and genuinely will like, oh, I'm not going to do this. You know, I'm not going to do this. I don't want to be involved. And so what I want to, you know, that not allowing the panic or fear of failure to get just to do something, and do it. And then like what you were saying with that first recording and making mistakes and getting things wrong, actually like almost so what, do the next episode, do the next thing, keep going. And so I think that's what I've taken away from that, is that what I need to do is I need to be, I'm very good at being persevering for someone else.
Oh, 100%.
I'm not very good at being persevering for me. Um, and very often I'm guilty of dishing out advice that in the back of my head I'm like, I ain't going to do this. And so I think the it may not necessarily be one thing that was said. I think it's more the attitude of the Curious Ulsterman that's challenged me.
Like it.
So that's my biggest takeaway, is that I need to learn how to readjust my attitude, to become someone who takes the advice that I'm giving and is active and gets on with things. So I think that's
I
where I'm
like
at
it.
with that.
Yeah. And I think it's an attitude thing of surround yourself with people who will believe in you even when you don't believe in yourself.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it's kind of like for me, I had the message in my head and I said, right, I'm going to do it. And, the constant support from people, I'm kind of like, is this really worth it? And it's like, yeah, people initially got me over the line. But I think it's practicing that self-confidence and that self-belief that, you have got something valuable to share
Yeah.
with other people. And, it's kind of like that when in No Wet Fish, when we were describing your up and coming podcast, that, for anyone who thinks that, markets are saturated or it's already been done, it's kind of like, well, for a start, go down the bread aisle of the supermarket and tell me how many variations of bread there are.
Yeah, of
Literally
course.
dozens of bread. I'm somebody's cup of tea, and I'm also, in some cases, yeah, I don't want to. I'd never want to hear your voice again.
Yeah.
So, it's you are somebody's cup of tea within the
Yeah.
podcasting or creative world. So,
I'd rather be someone's mug of coffee, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm
no,
down
there
with
you go. But yeah, that's the thing. I think without any credible psychology degree to my name, I think that's probably the biggest thing that stops people. That self-sabotage. What if I'm successful? What if it works? It's like crap.
Yeah.
Which Colt Gordon has another really good saying for that. It's like new levels, new devils. It's kind of like you slay one dragon and then it's kind of like a boss fight. The bosses just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but you're getting stronger and stronger in unison with it, and you just need to keep tackling it. So that for me is, that's that. When you say, I really liked what you said, that it's not even a list of lessons, it's an attitude, that can do attitude, and that's something I'll maybe try and incorporate as a whole into the Curious Ulsterman. It's the attitude of like, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, I mean, because I think when we go back to that episode we did about what's the point of doing New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
And I said it to you, didn't I? I said, I'm sat here saying this thing, knowing full well that I'm denying some stuff in my own head as I'm saying these words. And so I think, and that has been a reoccurring theme for me throughout the episodes when I've been out walking and listening to the podcast. And I'm going, man, I'm guilty. I'm a naughty boy. I'm hearing all these things that I need to be cracking on.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been really valuable for me. So
yeah, that's class, man. Just while we are chatting, audience, I opened the Q&A to me and Nathan, so please do get involved. Value your input in whatever capacity here. Open season on questions.
Keep it kind and friendly, though, folks.
Oh, no. I'll send that. I think my audience are quite wholesome. I don't think we'll have a problem for the most part. Touch wood.
The wholesome Ulsterman.
There you go. That's what I should have gone with.
No, you're definitely curious. That's fine.
Yeah,
Awesome.
100%. 100%. And I suppose while we're waiting for these questions here, what we could say is, although I'm now end of season 1, you're starting your podcast journey. So
well, soon, yes, yeah.
yes. So for the audience who are listening, do you want to give a brief snap of your of what your upcoming podcast is going to be about?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm not as dignified or as noble as you are, Johnny. I'm not looking to lower my hand down and lift people up to new levels. What I'm looking to do is to talk about things that I find interesting, exciting, and also with friends I've got who are similarly interested and would be who maybe I can get to come and talk to me about these things. And that for me is stuff to do with fermentation. So making beer, alcohol, all those kinds of things, and also curing and preserving. So making meats and cheeses and butters and all those kinds of things. Stuff that people don't do anymore so much, but also the fact that there are certain things like, for instance, homebrew beer has become very trendy, and particularly over the last 12 months, the amount of people brewing beer at home, because, well, speaking for the UK, for Britain, because pubs have been closed, there's the uptick in people brewing beer at home. But what I'd like to talk about, is things that cover those kinds of subjects. I just find the idea that, like, early man stumbled upon these things by accident,
Yeah.
and potentially, like, you get it wrong and you can make yourself really ill. You get it wrong and you could, like, you put too much of a curing salt into when you're making a bacon or a ham or something, and you can really do yourself some mischief. But yet humanity is still here. We survived. We survived our ancestors
Yeah.
messing about with stuff. And so I want to kind of explore that, and I want to explore the kind of the social aspects of those things. I mean, because everyone knows about the social aspect of drinking beer, for example, but what about the social aspect of making? The communities. I mean, again, I'm only speaking for England or for Britain, but, like, you look at the history of, like, towns and villages and stuff. Well, they usually grew up round a pub, round
Yeah.
a tavern. And so what's the community value of the act of fermentation? What is it about that draws people together? So I want to kind of explore that, and at the same time, I also want to go in and because I think, one of the things you're doing to create these things is, to a certain degree, you're creating life. You're making bacteria live and thrive, and so on. And so I want to talk about some life issues as well. So I will get some guests to come in, and I would like to cover subjects like mental health and stuff like that, just because I just think more voices out there shouting about it, it can't do any harm. So not every podcast is going to be about beer, or about cheese or about bacon. There will be life stuff. But I've got friends up and down the country who do some of these things as a hobby. So I want to get them in and chat to them about those things and learn
Yeah.
as well. And one of the other things as well, quite a lot of the video, and again, I'm purely speaking now as an ignorant Englishman, so forgive me if you're listening from somewhere outside the boundaries of our nation. But a lot of the videos and things on the internet for producing some of these cured meats and stuff they're in the language of the country that these things came from, which I don't have a problem with. That's great and right, and as it should be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an attempt at deciphering some of these things and then rejigging it in my best Yorkshire English, for everybody to listen. So and
That's
and
great.
and and hopefully spark off some interest in people doing things at home, so that we can, that to a certain degree, we can become a little bit more sustainable as well, and also defy the big corporate machines. The big supermarket chains, or even the big brewery chains that just want us to drink what they want us to, what they make, um, and relish in the joy of doing something yourself. um,
Yes.
you know, Making something, and then I think one of the things that you said about wanting to achieve success, so that you can enjoy the benefits of your labor, but also share it with other people. And I think for me, one of the best things about making beer or any of those things is the fact that you then get to share it. You get to sit down and have a beer with someone else, but it's a beer that you've made. I think is really that's what I want to try and communicate anyway with my pod. So
Yeah, that's good, man. I don't know if you can see the questions here, but Random
mm,
Nashi has a question: how much beer is going to be produced? And I'm curious. That's good. Maintain that curiosity, and don't ever
yeah,
lose
yeah,
it. Always
no,
question. Um, and we've also got the Ethical Kid listening from America. Very glad you're with us.
yeah. Glad to
Uh,
have you with us, Ethical Kid.
yeah. Random Nashi listening from the Middle East, Qatar, but I'm originally Asian. Well, fantastic.
Awesome,
I'm really
amazing.
glad you're with us.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
honestly, this is a very nice talk. I'm really enjoying it. Well,
Well,
I'm really glad you're enjoying it. Just out of curiosity for the audience participating, do you want to see more live streams on top of the podcast, or do you just want to keep this once a quarter, so 4 live streams a year? So we're always the podcast is still new and we're still sort of trialing things. So do let us know. So yes,
definitely,
Nathan,
definitely. Yeah.
Random Nashi, how much beer is going to be produced?
Oh well, so the the brewing machine that I have, that where you put the grains and the water in and everything, that holds um, roughly 23 liters of fluid once you've drained it out. So each batch will be about 23 liters, but you always lose a little bit because of sediment and other things. So you normally end up with 22 liters. Um, I'm sure it is more of an exact science, but I'm a semi-professional cowboy, so I haven't mastered the exactness of it yet. But it's normally between 22 liters, which is enough for any man or
It is
woman.
indeed.
I'm not, I don't want to be.
Oh, we know you're a wholesome dude. Wouldn't be into any of that. Yeah, that's good. I hope that answers your question. So I'm gonna probably cut this off in about 10 minutes time. So
Okay.
just to give you a heads up on the competition that is going on.
This is the only reason I'm still here.
Oh, well, there you go. Drum roll. This is the point. I wish I had sound effects. But alas, I'm just not that well known or rich enough of a podcaster. So the competition is, folks, if you go on to the podcast, have a listen, leave a rating and a review, and
Which podcast is it they need to go on to?
the Curious Ulsterman, our own podcast. There you go.
I just,
Oh
it
yeah,
never
yeah,
hurts
yeah,
to say the
yeah.
name often enough, does it?
That's true. Good marketing. I like it. Do go on to the Curious Ulsterman and have a listen. Leave a rating and a review, and then send me via one of the socials a screenshot of you leaving that review, and the first 3 people to leave that review will receive a book. Then there's 2 choices of books that I'm going to offer. You can have Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Lev Babin, which is that book behind me.
I
Very
was going
good
to
for
say, I can
personal.
see it.
Yeah, very good for personal accountability, and also just leadership in general. Or there is Can't Hurt
Is it?
Me from David
Uh,
Goggins.
I thought the other one was going to be the Renault manual,
No, no,
also on display in the
unless
background.
if you want to get a Haynes manual for Renault, then I could recommend it, but it's probably not going to do you a lot of good unless you're in the car. So
Excellent.
yeah, leave a rating and a review, and if you it says you a book, how do I get that again? So Ethical Kid, if you go on to the Curious Ulsterman, so if you have Apple, um, and just leave a rating and a review, and then take a screenshot of you leaving that, of sending that review, and then that will make if you're the first 3 people to do it, then you get a choice of one of them 2 books. Let me know which one you want, and then I'll send it to you free of charge.
What a man! I like that.
There you go. Yeah, so your 2 book options once again are Extreme Ownership and Can't Hurt Me. So yeah, very good books. Highly recommend them. I don't think I've heard anyone say a bad word about them. So they're very good reads. They've also said yes, more live streams. So that's something me and Nathan will discuss, and maybe even try and maybe even try and make that once a month or something potentially.
Yeah.
A random Nashi Apple. Yeah. So if you leave a review on Apple, and then
Apple Podcasts, is it?
Apple Podcasts, yeah.
Apple
So leave a review
Podcasts.
on Apple Podcasts for the Curious Ulsterman.
Is there anywhere else they could leave the review if they don't have Apple?
That's a good question.
I don't have Apple, so I wouldn't be able to leave you a review on Apple.
I don't have Apple either, but you can still, I think you can still go on to Apple via web browser, to my knowledge, because I go on there all the time to edit parts of the podcast and stuff. So yeah,
so
even if you don't
need to sign up and sell my soul to Apple.
To my knowledge, no. Hopefully not. But if it appears that not a lot of people are on Apple, then I can change it up, of course. But yeah, if you do it via Apple and you're the first 3 people to do it, then yeah, you'll get a free book.
Cool.
And I'll be in touch. So just send it on the socials. So whether that's Instagram, Twitter, I'll leave a review right now. Oh, thank you very much, Ethical Kid. You are keen for that book.
He's the fastest kid in the West. I like it. It's good.
I like it very much. Yes. Thank you so much for that. And then yeah, well, that's subscribe on Instagram, Twitter, the Facebook page, and we're on TikTok as well. But that's where I just leave little 1-minute snippets of the podcast. Yeah, I know there's disdain in your face there, Nathan. Yeah. Get past the legion of dancers, and you can just get to the podcast. Yeah. So yeah, just a snapshot. Just send it into messages on the Curious Ulsterman, and the man is fast as heck. Yes, he is indeed. Something I was thinking about actually, Nathan, was that a lot of podcasters and communities have community names. So, for example, there's one podcaster I follow who does the Nomadic Executive, very good podcast with Omar Mo, but his loyal fan base is the Nomad fam, and I was like, okay, that's pretty good. And then if you go on to other big podcasters, they all have names for their communities. So, for example, Dirt Civil in Northern Ireland, fantastic, really, really funny podcast, but they're called the Dirt Civilians. And it's really good. We need to come up with something for our. We need to come up with something for our little weird and wonderful bunch of listeners.
The problem is the way my brain works is every answer it's giving up is sectarian, so I'm trying not to do that. Maybe best I don't come up with the idea.
Yeah, no. Well, that's it. If you can come up with a name, folks, we're all ears. But we're coming up on probably 5 minutes to go on the live stream. But yeah, me and Nathan will have a chat and maybe see about doing this once a month, because clearly there's a need or a want for it. And yeah, I've really enjoyed this live stream, I must admit. We did say we were going to do this on a weekly basis at the start, and then realized we've got lives and it just isn't going to work.
And also we'd run out of things to chat about after the second. So
yeah, I suppose actually at the end of the once a month, I'll have done 4 episodes, then we can have a chat. Could I DM you a screenshot on Instagram? Yes. So yeah, just go on to Instagram and the Curious Ulsterman. I'll send you that book first class, my man. Don't you worry.
I tell you, Ethical Kid has guaranteed himself a book. I'm proud of him. Well done. That's amazing.
Fair play to you. So yeah, if we do it once a month, then we can take the 4 episodes I've done that month, and we can have a chat about it and get audience feedback on what they liked and what we liked about it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, Man, I'm impressed. I wasn't expecting it to be that quick. I was expecting like a week later someone to send me like a review saying, "Can I have my book?"
Yeah, man, that's really good.
Yes,
Yeah.
man. That's pretty good. So ethical kid. What if you have the time? Well, 5 more minutes. Which book do you want? Do you want Extreme Ownership, or do you want Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins? And I'll give you a chance to reply to that. Or if you can't make your mind up, just message me at some point in Instagram. Sure.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
man. But this is a great resource. We had this little problem earlier where like, can we stream to Twitch or YouTube, and then only found out like an hour, 2 hours before this you can actually stream to both using this. This is a great wee resource, isn't it?
Tell you, the internet, what a magical place.
I know. Gosh, can you imagine what the technology is going to be like in 10 years' time?
Nope.
No.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah.
Extreme Ownership is gone for.
There you go. Extreme
Love it.
Ownership is yours, ethical kid. I'll be in touch and we'll get your details and I'll get that sent to you pronto.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, if you have enjoyed this content, do follow on all the social media. So like I said, we're on Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the
Oh,
mainstream stuff.
you're so cool. You're so trendy.
I try to be not. They Yeah, also don't forget we're on Twitch. Again, it's all the Curious Ulsterman, easy to find. Gary V told me to do that actually. So Gary
Yeah.
V, the entrepreneur, he's like, go where your audience is. And my audience is on TikTok. So I just followed it there. LinkedIn,
Sick.
surprisingly, is very, very good for like getting views and stuff. That most recent episode talking about the veteran's journey, it had like 104 views
Oh,
within
wow.
like a day. But like not all of that transcribed across to actual listens, but 104, it was in front of 104 eyeballs, which is great.
That's
So
magical. I like that.
so we're gonna probably start thinking about closing out. Is there any final questions from anyone at all? And while we're waiting on those questions, Nathan, have you
Mhm.
anything you would like to say to the audience in conclusion of season 1?
Just thank you for listening. Thank you for
Yes.
supporting Jonathan in this endeavor. And I'm not going to steal your tagline because I want you to say it. It sounds better from your voice. But yeah, just guys, thank you. Keep on listening, and please do be active in sharing with Johnny what you think and where you want it to go, because I know that his hope is for this to be a sort of a 50-50 kind of listener led, um, you know, podcast. Me and Jonathan don't want to be sat here talking into the void about things that don't affect anyone's lives. We want, we if there's something that you would like us to talk about, particularly in the weeks with when it's our episode, when it's me and you together, I would say almost nothing is, as long as it's legal, nothing is off the table.
Mm,
Um, so please just communicate with us so we know how best to um, impact and to be useful.
100%. Yeah, and I think I'll reiterate that again. Thank you so much for tuning in. It does blow me
Yes.
away that people take the time out of their day to listen to what me and you have to say on a weekly basis, or me
Mm.
and my other guests have to say on a weekly basis. That blows me
Yeah.
away. And it's a nice feeling when you go to bed knowing that you've helped someone today. You'll probably never ever meet them, but it's good to know that they've had some benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say a little call to action for folk is, as we discussed earlier, what
Mm.
familiar hells are you staying in to avoid those strange heavens,
Mm.
and also what fear is holding you back, and
Mm.
how are you going to push through it? So feel the fear and do it anyway, and let us know. Tag the Curious Ulsterman so we can celebrate that win with you. Right, folks. That concludes the live stream for
Yeah,
season
man.
1. Can you believe it?
Wow.
I know. So season 2 starts immediately next week. Episodes drop on Friday, and next week will be this first episode. Is going to be chatting with my very good friend Rue, who's a PT, and we're going to be doing some myth busting on the gym. So what are the common myths around fitness and the gym? So you can look forward to that next Friday.
Amazing.
But yeah, any final words, Nathan?
Stay curious.
Love it. Yes. Right, folks. That's everything. And I wish you all the best. Bye for now.
See you later.